Good evening, church. Let's try one more time. Is Michael Hardy here? Hey, good evening, church. Yeah, what a great chilly day to have the chili soup, right? So I'm so grateful you're here this evening, whether you walked in with a full of heart, a little bit tired spirit from the Thanksgiving holiday, or simply a longing to sit among the community tonight. This gathering songs and stories is one of my favorite kind of the church, a little less formal, so I do not wear the robe. I can wear the jean like this. A place where we remember that faith has always been carried in two things: the stories we tell, the songs we sing. Tonight, you're invited to rest, to breathe, and to listen for some honest and personal stories, familiar hymns, and we're going to sing whole verses 1, 2, 3, 4, and a gentle reminder that God meets us in ordinary moments around the music, around the memory, around each other. And following the service, as I mentioned, you are all invited to come and attend the fellowship with the chili and soup. I believe you do not want to miss that gathering. Please join us, the hymn number 148 and 144.
Hi, everybody. So I had a little thing happen. My laptop died this week, so this is notebook paper. So just bear with me. But anyhow, here goes. My name is Betsy Barber, and my Christmas story is the story of Christmas 2017. I started coming to Eastwood almost 10 years ago, so many of you are familiar with my story, but for those of you who don't know this, I am a widow. My husband, Richard, died on March 18th, 2017. Christmas 2017 was my first Christmas without him. That year, as Christmas approached, I was dreading it. My husband was extremely sick for several years, and because of this, every special occasion, every holiday, especially Christmas, was celebrated to the best of my ability. I did my very best to make our home beautiful, baked all of his favorite treats, cooked all of his favorite foods, and bought him everything that I thought would put a smile on his face when he opened it under the tree. Christmas without Richard, especially in the home where we celebrated so many joyous Christmases together, seemed unbearably sad. And I didn't have it in me to decorate or bake treats or really do anything else. So I decided to get out of town and, more important, out of my house for Christmas that year. I decided to go to Washington, D.C. for Christmas by myself. This decision was met with concern from my loving family and my well-intentioned friends. They all generously invited me to spend Christmas with them instead, and when that didn't work, they told me that they were concerned that I'd be crying myself to sleep every night while I was away, that I'd be unbearably lonely and surrounded by happy families, which was a valid concern. But I can be extremely stubborn sometimes, and my mind was made up. The only thing that I was sad about missing was the Christmas Eve service here at Eastwood. And if you've been to our Christmas Eve service, you can understand. If you haven't been, I urge you to join us. So I flew out of Nashville on December 20th to return Christmas evening after Christmas, as far as I was concerned, was pretty much over. And on the plane, I made a promise to myself to open myself up to any opportunities that presented themselves and to live my life to the fullest. So these were some of the things that I did on my solo Christmas trip. I explored the National Mall and toured several Smithsonian museums. I joined tours of the Library of Congress and the U.S. Capitol. I met my nephew Spencer and his new girlfriend Megan to see a performance of A Christmas Carol at Ford's Theater with dinner after. Since then, Spencer and Megan have been married for a few years and are the proud parents of my great niece, Lily. Also, a work colleague who works in the copyright office gave me a private behind-the-scenes tour of the workings of the U.S. Copyright Office. And then I accidentally stumbled into the Christmas pageant at the National Cathedral. And y'all, they don't mess around. Those people, they have live animals and an infant. If you're ever in D.C., you should check it out. Thanks to pictures I posted on Facebook, people who live around Washington reached out to me. I had lunch Christmas Eve with a good friend of Richard's from high school. Christmas Eve night, I went out to dinner and back to the National Cathedral for their Christmas Eve service with Richard's cousins. But the only thing I had planned for Christmas itself was attending the service at St. John's Episcopal Church right around the corner from my hotel. And after talking to a woman at my hotel who was also traveling solo, we made plans to attend that service together. Sure enough, my new friend was there waiting for me on Christmas morning, And after the service, which was lovely, we had Christmas lunch together at the very ritzy St. Regis Hotel. I found out that she was a professional stand-up comedian between gigs, which made for some lively conversation. I flew home that night exhausted, but proud of the adventure I'd had. Sure, I experienced sadness. That was to be expected, but I believe it would have been worse if I'd stayed home. I came back to Nashville feeling better prepared to face the road ahead, and I felt validated for listening to myself. I share all this tonight to tell you, sometimes we're going to go through tough times during the holidays. Sadly, that reality is inevitable. If your holiday traditions continue to serve you, that's great. But if you don't think that will be the case, give yourself permission to celebrate Christmas differently. It might be exactly what you need. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Let's continue singing as we sing our next hymn number 149, Angels from the Realms of Glory. Well, good evening, everyone. Since this is my first time here at Eastwood during this season, I was honored to be asked to share a Christmas story with you tonight. Every Christmas Eve, when I was growing up in Huntsville, Alabama, my paternal grandparents opened their home for a large family dinner. The house on Andrew Jackson Way sits in my heart like a postcard, red brick with crisp white trim, long driveway, and every year my granddaddy hung the big homemade star that he made and put lights in it on top of the house. This tradition started long before I was born, so by the time I came along, it felt kind of timeless and unbreakable. Relatives would come all over, and people waited all year to see each other around that time, but didn't see them any other time. The moment you walked in my grandparents' house, through the screen door, you were hit with a few smells. Smell of baking ham, dressing, turkey roasting, and fresh bread. Along with that faint scent, there was a scent from my grandfather's pipe tobacco. This has been a few years ago, drifting from downstairs, his private domain where he kind of tended the wood furnace for the home, and that was the only place in the house that grandmother would allow him to smoke. But he always made sure it was warm, even though it was always too warm for everybody else. So we learned not to wear a whole lot of sweaters. If we did, we'd just take them off. Let's see. Among all those voices that I would hear from the relatives, cousins, aunts, uncles, would be my first cousin once removed, Joyce Ann. Joyce Ann was pure magic with porcelain. She made beautiful plates and figurines, but she was best known for her exquisite porcelain dolls. They were hand-painted faces that felt like they were lifelike, and they could blink when you least expected them. For years, Joyce Ann traveled across the United States teaching classes, presenting her dolls at shows and various conventions. I didn't know there were conventions like that, but I guess there were at that time. Don't know about now. Yet no matter how far she roamed, she always made it back to Huntsville for Christmas Eve. She adored her aunt, my grandmother, and one Christmas Eve, when I was about 9, 10 years old, she walked in carrying a very small box. Inside was the tiniest, most perfect little baby. Joyce Ann handed it over, and with the mischievous grin that she always tended to have, and with love, she said, "This year, every Christmas I'm going to bring another piece until the whole scene is finished." So she bought a porcelain baby Jesus to sit in a nativity scene. And she vowed to bring one every year until it was finished. We laughed, but she wasn't joking. And she kept her promise. Year after year, she would bring Mary in a blue robe, so soft it looked like silk, Joseph with his staff, shepherds carrying tiny lambs, angels with gold-tipped wings, even a little donkey, and my favorite was the camel. The largest figures stood about 6 inches tall, and they varied in size, but yet every detail was beautiful. Her mother, Joyce Ann's mother, Lorraine, was an oil painter, and I still have some paintings that she did in my house. And she painted the faces of all the porcelain dolls or figures that Joyce Ann would make, with sparkling life, the curves of the mouth, gentle smiles, every fold of the robe. Every animal featured was so true to life. The soft wool on the lambs, the camel's long eyelashes, and the donkey's sweet but stubborn ears. When Aunt Lorraine, her mother, passed away, Joyce Ann quietly took up the brushes and started to paint them herself. She did a wonderful job, but you could always tell which ones were Lorraine's and which ones were Joyce Ann's. My grandmother had a nativity table already from that very first piece that she got at the far end of the living room, right in front of a big picture window, sitting between the old record player console. A lot of you probably don't know what a record player is or what the console was. It was a big piece of furniture, and it had speakers. You lifted it up, and it had a radio and a turntable, and so that was there. And on the other side was just a mahogany bookshelf, and she would place that right in the middle. The whole scene was really beautiful, set up when we arrived on Christmas Eve every year. And the minute we burst through the door, we'd race straight to that table. Eyes would scan all the figures, trying to guess which one was the brand new figure that year. It turned into kind of an exciting game for all of my cousins to kind of figure out which one it was and guess the right figure. The rest of the night would swirl around that table, great aunts and uncles telling the same old stories, everybody dressed in their Christmas finest, red velvet dresses, crisp white shirts and ties, little boys with tiny suspenders, cousins sneaking around for one more piece of fudge, paper ripping, opening presents, babies crying, and always in the background, the warm crackle of Bing Crosby's voice, spinning on the old record player, either singing "Oh Holy Night" or "White Christmas." I know there were other songs, but those are the two that I love that he sings. And in the middle of all of that beautiful chaos sat the Nativity, quiet, glowing, growing each year, one new piece every year. My grandfather finally built a little rough-hewn stable out of wood to place the figures in. He wired a single kind of golden star and put a light in it that you could turn on with a kind of hidden switch in the back. There was something breathtaking about the contrast between the wood of the stable weathered against the smooth, luminous porcelain figures glowing inside and out, as if the humblest manger had been made worthy to hold the most exquisite treasures. The Nativity was never just a decoration to my grandparents. It was the whole point of Christmas. They were the two of the strongest Christian influences I've ever had. They taught me that church isn't a building you visit. It's a story you keep adding to, a light you keep tending, a family you keep making room for. Well, Joyce Ann kept her promise faithfully for decades, and she completed the nativity scene, a total of 30 breathtaking pieces, every shepherd, every camel, every angel. It didn't take 30 years, because some Christmases she surprised us and made a couple of extra, 2 or 3, if they were smaller. Although after she completed that, she lived for many more years. She lived until her early 90s and continued to do wonderful things and be a very unique and loving person in her own way. I'll never forget that grin. Every time I think about that nativity, I'm carried right back to the living room in Huntsville, to a glowing star made of wood and another one shining out front on the house that Granddaddy made and hung up every year, and a woman who spent her life providing that the best gifts aren't the ones you unwrap once. They're the ones that keep showing up year after year until the whole story shines bright enough for everybody in the room to see. Thank you, Joyce Ann. Thank you, Grandmother and Granddaddy Johnson. Thank you for the quiet miracle of the Nativity and for giving us people faithful enough to keep telling it, one beautiful piece at a time. Thank you. Now let's get to what I really like to do, and that's sing. So let's continue with hymn 151, The First Noel.
Well, good evening, everybody. So, I don't know if many of you know, but my mom was a disciples pastor full-time when I was growing up. And that meant that I spent so many holidays, so many Christmases in churches. I was the kid running around the sanctuary. You know, all the people are like, man, my kid's running around going a little crazy. Yeah, that was me. My mom is someone who always was able to bring the joy of Christmas. And then I remember my grandmother was the same way. I'm Italian. My mom's side of the family is huge. Every Christmas, once we leave church, we're always going to go to my grandparents' house. Every room is going to be filled with new toys for all of the kids and the clothes that the parents were always excited about. And I remember just always seeing family, always having people in the house. Last year was a little different. I didn't plan on getting emotional. I have a younger sister. Her name is Bella. Last year, around this time, I get a text from my mom that says, I know you're in finals, but your sister's in the hospital. She had an undiagnosed illness called dysautonomia. No one knew what it was. No one understood what was happening. She lost the ability to walk. She couldn't speak. She had a feeding tube. She started to have stroke-like symptoms in her face. Someone who was so full of life and would tell you about yourself the first time she could, I realized was laying in the bed, and I never knew how sick she was until I got to the hospital. People would come and visit, and I knew it was Christmas time, and I knew that the things that I had remembered growing up, that those were the memories I wanted to hold on to most. And those were the things that I would talk to Bella about when she was awake, in between all the doctors coming in and out. But I really thought about where is the hope and the peace and the love and the joy. When someone who, yes, I bickered with very much growing up, but laid in a bed and couldn't fend for herself, couldn't ask for the things that she needed. She was brought to the ICU one night. Her heart rate spiked, which was normal for this dysautonomia, but the doctors didn't understand. And so when she was in the ICU, I saw my mom crumble. Something that once had such light during a time of great celebration diminished. She didn't need to be in the ICU. Her neuro doctor fought hard and fought for very long to get her out of the ICU, and eventually she got back upstairs with the nurses that she had been with for over 2 months. And her neuro doctor said, I think I know what this is. I think it's dysautonomia. It's a disease that attacks your nervous system, and that's why all of her motor functions weren't working properly. And she said, I need to reach out to the Mayo Clinic and we will get the medicine that she needs. She worked day in and day out. Every night that my mom needed, she would answer the phone call. She got her this medicine, and you could start to see the life kind of pick back up in Bella. She was opening her eyes more. She was being awake for a lot more time than she had before. She wasn't yet walking very much. She wasn't sitting up on her own as much yet. But my older sister brought us nothing bundt cakes. I don't know if you've ever had nothing bundt cakes. I am here to tell you that they are a miracle, okay? My sister hadn't eaten solid food in over a month. And when she could talk, she said, I want this feeding tube out. I said, okay, we'll talk to the doctor. And she said, but what I really want is that bundt cake. And my mom was at work, and so I was the only one in the hospital with her that day. And I said, Belle, you can't have solid food yet. And she goes, I want the bundt cake. And I was like, you know what? This 18-year-old who has to have so many doctors take care of her. All she wanted was a bundt cake. So I gave her that bundt cake. Her nurse came in and said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Shh." Said, "Nothing, it's fine." She goes, "I didn't see that." I was like, "Yeah, correct, you didn't see nothing." My sister got out of the hospital 2 days before Christmas because the medicine kicked in that quick. She was able to walk again and talk and ask for the things that she needed. Her face wasn't drooping as much. She was laughing again. And these are the times that I really sat, and we were also planning our wedding. And I said, if we have to have our wedding in the ICU, we'll do it. But it's the little things that I realized, even when it didn't feel like Christmas, it was. Maybe it was the bundt cake that my mother told me not to give my sister. Or maybe it was the small voice telling me that she'll be okay. It was the first Christmas that I hadn't been in a sanctuary, that I hadn't heard the Christmas songs, hadn't opened the presents, hadn't had the matching pajamas. It was so different than any other Christmas I had ever understood growing up. And yet, it was still the exact same. Family came, brought what we needed, asked for how they could help. Church family came, asked what they could do, prayed for her, did everything they could. And that's when I really started to see that when you have hope, even in the darkest times, there will be that light. It may be in a bundt cake, but nevertheless, the hope is there. I realized that the love that I have for my sister was a bond that you can never lose. And the joy, when you hear that laugh again, is tremendous. There was not much peace that Christmas, but there was a whole lot of love, a whole lot of joy, and a whole lot of hope. Even in the darkest times, when we don't have the tree set up, and we don't have the presents, we don't have the lights and the music, the message of Christmas for me is still there. That there is something bigger coming. There is a blessing on the way that you just haven't seen yet. You just haven't seen it yet. But you will soon. Thank you.
Let's continue as we turn to hymn number 153, It Came Upon a Midnight Clear.
Christmas memories. Have you ever found a place that immediately takes you back to your childhood whenever you're there? For me, that place is our church camp, Bethany Hills. Visiting in the summertime reminds me of my own cherished church camp days, but during the fall and winter, the hickory nut trees, the black walnut trees, and the unspoiled land of Bethany Hills remind me of Christmas time when I was growing up. Now, my husband has accused me of being a time traveler from the 1800s whenever I share my childhood Christmas memories. But at the time, I thought everybody in the 1960s celebrated the season much like we did in rural northwestern Ohio, Bell Fountain to be exact, the highest point in the state. Maybe it was because we live with so many Mennonite families in our tight-knit community, but some aspects of our lives were much more of a Norman Rockwell scene, at least from the outside looking in, than we ever realized until much later when those Christmases only lived on in our memories. We did gather hickory nuts and black walnuts every fall, and we kids spent a lot of time on the back porch hammering hickory nuts and carefully picking and placing the precious pieces of nuts into a jar for Christmas baking and candy making. Hammering hickory nuts was easy compared to pounding the treasure out of the inside of the black walnuts. Those shells were harder than granite, but boy, they were delicious. Even with gloves, our hands inevitably got stained a dark, tarry brown. But I don't remember anybody getting made fun of for that particular reason, because the kids with the goodies suddenly became everybody's best friend, at least until the candy and cookies ran out. Candy and cookie making didn't just happen in each family's kitchen either. The women of each church gathered to make cookies, hard candy, and fudge to sell at their bazaars, to pay for items the churches needed, or to support the charities each church held dear. We kids got into the candy making too. Every year, the church youth groups held taffy pulls where it just wouldn't be Christmas. The youth leaders stirred sugar, corn syrup, water, vinegar, yes, vinegar, butter, and vanilla until it was approximately the same temperature as an erupting volcano. Next, the gooey mass was poured into a huge buttered pan, and when the taffy was barely cool enough to touch without burning our hands, we were divided into teams of 2 people, given a round mass of taffy and instructed to go outside in the freezing cold and pull that candy in a huge string between the 2 of us until the candy was so stiff it refused to be pulled anymore. After that, we were finally allowed to come back inside to cut the taffy into bite-sized pieces and wrap it in wax paper. We always took that candy home, though, because somehow our youth leaders decided only people who really loved us would want to eat the taffy. You guys have seen church group stuff. I know you know what I'm talking about. Our church youth groups also held a Christmas hayride each year, with boys seated down one side of the wagon and the girls on the other. Bundled under heavy blankets and wearing several layers of clothing over long underwear, we would sing, or maybe chatter, Christmas carols as we rode down the lanes to the nearby houses and farms. These Christmas carols, even when delivered off-key, never sounded better. Back then, our community and our parents believed there was no such thing as bad weather, only bad clothing choices. And Christmas time was experienced, the way I remember it, primarily outdoors, where we sledded down hills for much of the day. At the bottom of the hill, wood fires with cast iron kettles of homemade hot chocolate and soup kept us going. When it got dark, somebody pulled out packages of hot dogs and marshmallows to roast over the fire. And if there wasn't snow for sledding, or we just tired of it
it was always cold enough for ice skating. Many neighboring farmers put down 2x4s of lumber or railroad ties in the lowest area of the cow pastures to make the outer edges of an ice rink, and then slowly flooded it with water. We ice skated every chance we got from Christmas time until the spring thaw. New snowsuits, sleds, and skates were high on Christmas lists every year. Eventually, we were allowed to come inside, and decorating our houses and our churches were highlights of the season. For weeks before Christmas, we only asked for fried or scrambled eggs for breakfast because we needed those whole egg shells to make Santa head Christmas ornaments using cotton carefully saved from medicine bottles, construction paper, and yes, Kent McGarry, glitter. Yep, we thought those glittery ornaments were pretty extravagant. The hanging of the green service was one of the most anticipated services of the whole year for everybody. Our church was stripped of much of its regular decorations before the event. At specific points in the service, between carols and Bible verses, one family at a time would place candles, wreaths, garlands, poinsettias, and finally the Advent wreath with its special candles and the nativity scene were placed in spots of honor in our sanctuary so that everyone in our church was ready to wonder, to anticipate, and to observe Jesus' birth. A second tree suddenly appeared in the church dining hall. Every year after lunch and visiting with Santa, each child was allowed to choose an ornament from that tree to take home for their very own. I still hang one tattered but much loved little papier-mâché ornament from that cherished church tree of my childhood. There are other tales of those Christmases long ago filled with so much joy. Sometimes there were tales of hurts and slights and misunderstandings, just like the rest of the year. But those are stories for other nights. Tonight is a night of remembrance of those people and times who have enriched our lives. I reflect on the relationships that have meant so much to me, and I cherish those memories I hold so dearly. Looking forward to this season energizes me as we focus our attention to preparing our homes, our church, and our hearts for this year's moments that will add to the garland of Christmas memories that make up the timelines of all of our lives. May we each take the time to visit our own memories in the stillness of the season, to share them with our friends and loved ones, and to experience the joy of anticipation of making new ones this Advent season.
Wanted to say thank you again for all the speakers tonight. I feel like we have plenty of the preachers. I mean, they speak better than me, so I'm so grateful for that. And also, this is kind of a reminder that following the service, following the end of the carol song, we are all invited to come and attend the chili supper, chili and soups. So please come and attend. Please join me in the prayer. Gracious and holy God, we thank you for the songs that lifted our spirits and the stories that reminds us of your goodness and faithfulness that still breaks into our lives no matter what. In this season of Advent, oh God, we pause with grateful hearts for the blessings and gifts you have poured into our lives, family, friends, community, and the moments of joy we share together. But, oh God, we also remember those who cannot rejoice right now, those who are grieving, who are lonely, who are ill or burdened by hardship. Surround them with your comfort, Strengthen them with your peace, and let them feel your nearness when joy feels far away. Teach us to be people of compassion, reaching out with understanding and kindness to those who need it the most today. As we leave this place to our fellowship, oh God, bless their hands and prepare the chili and soups. May the fellowship we share over chilies, over soups, and good company be a foretaste of the grace and reminder that we never walk alone in this season of Advent. Go in peace and love and joy. Amen. Please join us sing hymn number 167, Go Tell It on the Mountain.